stop thunderstorm sound.
Sunny. The sun is on. That's just...
Okay, I'm back, Biffy. Got my tea steeping here now. This virus is spreading rapidly and could put a strain on our hospitals and emergency services. I am asking everyone to please wear a mask. It's important to make sure your mask covers your nose and your mouth at all times. Wearing a mask is one of the only defensive tactics we have to slow this virus down. Remember, wear a mask, stay apart, and wash your hands.
A serious injury from an accident can be just the start of your worries. What if you cannot return to work? How do you take care of your family if you're disabled? At Gelner Law Offices, we represent seriously injured people and understand their problem. We know how to get you fair compensation. We will work hard to make sure you get the money you deserve for your losses. Don't go it alone. If you're hurt in an accident, call us at 304-242-2900 or visit us at gelnerlaw.com.
We'd like to help.
Managing your business can be a minefield. One step in the wrong direction, and it can feel like everything you've worked for is at risk. I always had a vision of building a team, a crew of true professionals that could handle it all, tax, insurance, and investments. Big enough to partner with Encova, but personal enough to protect your interests on the home front. I'm Gary, and this is the Glessner Group.
Hello everyone, from the Watchdog, I'm the Storm Tracker Darnell Foster with a look at your local weather forecast for your Thursday. Mostly sunny skies, daytime high of 42, your overnight low of 24 with just a few clouds around. You'll see plenty of sunshine around for your Friday with highs in the lower to mid 40s. Have yourself a great day everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
Your morning news, weather, and sports wrapped into his own unique perspective. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe and Brad Leonard in the producer's chair. Brought to you in part by Wheeling Hospital.
30 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. A little bit of light wind makes it feel like 25. 30 degrees at the airport, 30 degrees at my home studio here in the Elm Grove section of Wheeling, 30 degrees. Excuse me, at the Robinson Autograph Studios downtown Wheeling in the heart of the Ohio Valley. I'm going to take a sip of I've switched to tea. Thanks to Brother Biff. Good suggestion, Biffy. I don't know if I've got honey in here or not. I don't know what Nancy put in here. Ah, yes, must be honey because it's awful sweet. Hold on. That's good, though. I don't know. I'm getting a little sore throat. That concerns me. I got my second vaccine. It's been a week ago, right? A week ago today, I think. So surely the reaction's not that far delayed. I don't know why I'm getting a little sore throat, but it was Brother Biff's suggestion during the news breaks to get some tea. So I think you're right. I've got some tea here. I'm hopefully just drinking out of my Watchdog Morning Show mug. Hopefully that'll help the sore throat issue. Governor Justice held another town hall meeting last night on his proposed income tax reduction. As I mentioned earlier, it was either Brad McElhenney or Stephen Allen Adams who said, can it really be a town hall if the town isn't invited? But nonetheless, it was the town hall meeting. I think there were about 100 and some people who were watching it on the governor's feed. But he still had very minimal details of his income tax plan. We have very broad strokes, but no dollars and cents put behind it. By the way, I might say, and that's dollars and cents, C-E-N-T-S. I might also say no cents, S-E-N-S-E, put behind it. The governor talked about how a great guy he is and how he saved the Greenbrier and how we got to trust him because he never makes mistakes. He said that. Well, I hardly ever make a mistake. Really. So, but this whole thing just drives me crazy because there are no details. Now, maybe we'll get him today. He said he's going to propose the income tax plan. He's going to send it to the legislature today, and he hopes they'll concur with him. We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, the legislature keeps eroding the authority of local governments. They're prohibiting the banning of plastic straws at a municipal level. They took away the authority of local health boards, or they're planning to do that once it all passes. House committee yesterday recommended eliminating user fees that many cities, including Wheeling, rely on fairly significantly. We'll talk to Mayor Elliott about that in just one quick second. And the puppet master coming in. Why? Because he's always fun. It's just simple as that. I'll be brutally honest with you. 3rd District Delegate Sean Fluharty will share his own frustrations with the lack of comity and transparency in what I have been calling the worst legislative session certainly I can remember, and I probably believe, in history. So the puppet master coming in a bit later on. Outside of the legislature, will Donald Trump be back in the White House next week? The answer, of course, is no. But some QAnon supporters say March 4th is the day that Trump becomes president once again. Also, no charges against Tiger. Police reform bill once again proposed in Congress, and gas prices going up. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. Saw Mayor Elliott yesterday during his radio show at the radio station. I was there and saw the mayor, and you know, I'm an astute judge of character, Biff. I can read between the lines. Sometimes I can just sense things.
Yeah.
I sensed a great deal of frustration on the part of Mayor Elliott with our current legislative session. And so, because I am so astute, I said, Mr. Mayor, would you like to share your frustrations with us on the radio? And he said, you're damn right I would. I don't know if he said damn or not. But he said, sure, I have some things I'd like to say. He said some of them on his own show yesterday. You were wheeling, no two ways about it, with the mayor and the vice mayor. But I thought he'd come on this morning and talk some more about it. Mr. Mayor, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Monroe.
Now, did I correctly analyze some frustration in you yesterday?
I think you did, and if I didn't say damn, I should have.
And your frustration when you and I talked yesterday was before the House Political Subdivision Committee apparently is attempting to literally eliminate the user fee. They have been talking about exempting state workers from the fee, which all across the state, those cities who have it. But when they finally got the bill out of committee and heads to the House, it includes completely eliminating the user fee. Am I right about that?
Oh, you are right. And I was aware that bill was going to be amended yesterday, and I was told it had the votes probably in that committee to pass. So nothing surprises me about it except for its stupidity. And so I get to that, but there were so many other things that this legislature's already been focused on that we focused on yesterday during the show that it seems like it's an annual experience holding your breath and waiting for the legislative session to end before they do too much damage. And it seems like every year it's getting worse, not better. And so I am guilty of letting my frustration run over a little bit yesterday. And my sense is they're going to give me more fodder to work with between now and the end of the session.
I have been saying that this is, without a doubt in my mind, the worst legislative session for the people of West Virginia that I can remember ever, and I think it may be literally just the worst legislative session ever. I mean, in my mind, and you can concur or tell me I'm wrong, the destructive, regressive policies that they have simply rushed through without public input, often without public testimony. It's like they had a list of bad things they wanted to do and just started checking them off.
Well, wherever the list is coming from, it's not coming from a hard look at what the state really needs. It's coming from, you mentioned the ridiculous bill which would prevent cities from banning straws, which no city in West Virginia has even talked about banning straws. That bill doesn't come from anyone looking at what's out there and looking at what the state needs. It comes from grievances. It comes from watching too much cable news and suggesting, oh my God, a city out in San Francisco or Seattle, whatever, some city did this. How terrible is this? We can't let our cities do this. That's what they're focused on. They're not focused on why do every year young people continue to leave the state. I guarantee you, Howard, it's not because of straw policy, but that is what they're focused on. That's what the House passed yesterday. They spent time debating that yesterday. It's just, we're looking at the wrong things and we're trying to, look, I have no, I'm not getting into left-right politics. As a city official and nonpartisan office, I really try not to. I think what you've seen in West Virginia is the state go for many years of one side of the Democrats controlling, now it's going to Republicans control. I'm not going to argue that the Democrats did a great job when they were in control, and I think the reaction to it is, well, let's go in the other direction. And at the end of the day, we're not going in the right direction either way. We need to look at why young people keep leaving year after year, and why we're one of the few states with declining population. And nothing I see on the agenda down there, including the governor's income tax proposal, is going to change that.
Well, I was going to say, Mr. Mayor, don't you understand? We are going to see 400,000 new people come rushing into the state when we have no income tax.
It's just. I've talked about the income tax thing, and I generally like the governor. I think the proposal comes from his heart genuinely. I think he really thinks that it will work. I just think he's wrong. I think he knows, I'm sure he knows a lot of wealthy folks who are retiring, and they say, well, you go down to Florida, Tennessee, they have no state income tax. That's where you retire to. And I think we're trying to compete in a way we can't compete. Like I said, like you said, the same thing I've said. We don't have 1,000 miles of coastline. We don't have Florida's weather. We're not going to get a vast chunk of retirees simply because they want to go somewhere where it's comfortable to live from a climate perspective. We need to focus on why young people are continuing to leave, and young people are not thinking about state income taxes. I don't remember thinking about state income taxes until I was in my 30s. It's not something that when you're looking for your first job out of college, it's not something, well, gee, I'm going to go to state with no state income tax. You're not thinking about that, and it just drives me nuts that we're trying to almost reverse engineer something out of where there's really no. It's a same thing was said yesterday for the user fee bill. It's a solution in search of a problem.
The city of Wheeling, I'm not going to suggest that it's found its way completely, but the city of Wheeling has done a reasonably good job of seeing some younger folks come back, younger professional folks to a large extent, come back and find a place here in the city of Wheeling. What is it in your mind that attracts them to come to Wheeling, for example?
I've been saying this like a broken record for 5 years now, but it's quality of life issues first and foremost.
Just don't say walkability, Mr. Mayor. Just don't say walkability.
I'm not saying walkability, but walkability is part of quality of life. I mean, honestly, it's the things that you're probably sick of hearing me talk about, but of young professionals who've left the city and gone to places like New York, wherever, or even Charlotte, Columbus, whatever. They expect things like, loft apartments downtown, microbreweries. They expect, a lot of parks and recreation. They expect to be able to walk places. They expect not to be dependent on cars. They expect things like, the Wheeling Symphony, things like, the two professional sports teams that we have here. Those are all things that meet their expectations from a quality of life perspective. And, we've been trying to accentuate that, building on what's been done in prior years. We're not where we need to be yet, but, that's something that it takes time, and I think we've seen some gradual improvements in that regard. And that's what West Virginia needs to compete. It needs to be more focused on what are the young people who keep leaving, what are they seeking, and why are they leaving? If they think, our legislature is, what I'm hearing is they're going to pass legislation to overturn all the city non-discrimination ordinances for LGBTQ individuals. If they think that's going to bring young people here, it's insane. 2021, not 1950, but it seems like we're still trying to solve the problems of the last century and legislate morality and legislate and tell city councils what they can't do. This is not conservatism, right? I have a lot of intellectual appreciation for conservatism as a traditional governing philosophy. This is not conservatism. This is a reactive grievance politics, and it's not anything that's going to bring young people here.
Well, there's been a trend in this legislative session to try to eliminate as much local control as possible, not just with the user fee, but with what they're doing with the local health boards. There are a couple of other bills where the school boards, they're taking the authority away from individual school boards, the school superintendents to make decisions, and they're going to have to operate by state fiat. And you're right, Mr. Mayor. As I look at it philosophically from a book learning, conservatives are supposed to be believing that the best government is the local government. Yeah. Government governs best when it governs close to home. And boy, oh boy, has this session been the antithesis of that.
You're absolutely right, Howard. It's they know best in Charleston. It's top down. They're conservative until someone at a lower level of government wants to do something they disagree with them. They absolutely want to get rid of that power for them to do it. And it's not conservatism in any meaningful way. We'll talk. You wanted to talk about the user fee. Well, let's look at the user fee. First of all, as I've said publicly, I don't love the user fee because it is a regressive fee in the way, like the sales tax. It taxes everybody the same rate. I don't like that aspect of it, but the reason so many cities have turned to it is because cities in West Virginia don't have a lot of flexibility on how they raise funds. We can't, for example, like cities in Ohio, levy an income tax. Martins Ferry has, I think, a 1% income tax, or maybe 2%. I think St. Clairsville has one as well. We don't have that authority to do that in West Virginia, so we have to look to taxes like the user fee to get projects funded. But in the case of the user fee, it was something that was debated for almost a year here in the Wheeling City Council. It was voted on, it was approved, and then we had an election. all the members who actually voted for that user fee, who ran for re-election, got reelected. The one member who voted against the user fee didn't get reelected. But yet, and so as I see it, that's government working the way it's supposed to. But now we have Charleston coming in and saying, you know what? I don't care that you guys had elections and did this under the law and passed this in to solve a problem like a new police and fire department. I don't care that you did that. You shouldn't have the right to do that because I don't like user fees. That's not conservatism. It's reactionary. It's pandering, and it's doing nothing to let cities like Wheeling and other cities that have user fees actually solve their problems with that funding.
Mr. Mayor, I want to talk more about the user fee, what it's used for in the city of Wheeling for those who need to be reminded of it, and what would mean if we didn't have it in effect right now, or if they were to wipe it out. I want to do that when we come back, so just hang on a quick second if you don't mind. It's 8:23 in the morning here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Mr. Mayor Elliott is with us, and we're talking about the impact of the legislative session on cities, municipalities like Wheeling, although not exclusively Wheeling. Wheeling is not the only one with a user fee. And we'll continue the conversation coming up here on the Watchdog Morning Show.
Plumbers and Steam Fitters Local 83 want to thank the owners and contractors of
right to receive blood when hospitalized, we must also consider the responsibility to donate blood to maintain the supply for the community. This message from all the great and caring folks, the members of Roofers Union Local 188 out of Wheeling, representing licensed, bonded, and insured roofers for all residential and commercial projects. That's Roofers Union Local 188 in Wheeling, wishing everyone a safe and healthy year.
Claysville. The Watchdog is protecting your yard. Join Howard Monroe, Hoppy Kercheval, Bill DeFabio, and Big Rick for the best live and local talk in the Upper Ohio Valley and beyond. Claysville trusts the Watchdog.
The Valley's most interesting conversations continue now on the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe, brought to you in part by Wheeling Hospital.
The West Virginia legislature had originally talked about, a House committee had talked about exempting state workers from the user fees in Wheeling and elsewhere, city municipal user fees. And that in itself was bad enough and also made absolutely no sense, 0 sense. Why would state workers be given an exemption when the user fee was designed and is constitutional basically because it applies to everybody equally who works in the city and benefits from city services? And then yesterday when the bill came up in the House Political Subdivision Committee, an amendment was made from Delegate Foster down in Putnam County that would simply exempt everybody from the user fee. Because you work in the city. In fact, I think at one point Delegate Foster said something along the lines of any projects funded by these user fees are just, I think he called them frivolous, but he said they're really not necessary projects. I have Wheeling Mayor Glenn Elliott on the phone line with me. Mr. Mayor, what does the city of Wheeling use its user fee for? And many of us know this, but let's just recap it here.
Certainly. It's a $2 a week user fee that we have. It's technically called a service fee. 1/2 of the proceeds of that go into an account which is set aside for funding the new police and fire headquarters. We've already move forward on the police headquarters with the acquisition of the VPC building and the OVMC campus. The work's already begun there. And then we're still looking at a spot for new fire department headquarters. We have some spots, some good locations picked. We'll hopefully be acting on that soon. So all the funds from that is going to be funded by selling bonds, which will be back with the proceeds from those user fees, that $1 that user fee. The other dollar goes to infrastructure projects across the city. What we found is that there were a variety of projects that weren't, because they weren't incredibly urgent, year after year, we're getting passed over because of new pressing things that came up under a regular capital improvement budget. So we couldn't get to some of these things, some road slips, some bridge repairs, things like Wheeling Hill, which, the sidewalk is absolutely dreadful. Sort of projects like that we found weren't getting done year after year just because of other things. We wanted a dedicated capital improvement fund. And so we use the other dollar that used fee for that. So we've already started a lot of those road slips already and working on things like the Schilling Bridge is up, I think soon, some work to be done and other things. But there's a dedicated part of funding. All the money that comes in is dedicated for those projects. And that's where, in the city of Wheeling, our $2 fee goes to.
And how much do we gather from the user fee? Do you know off the top of your head?
Each dollar brings in, and this year, with our first year being a pandemic year, it's tough because, some folks aren't working in the city that otherwise would be. But I think each dollar is bringing in roughly $800,000 in revenue annually. So $1.6 million a year for the two dollars combined.
What happens if you don't have that money? I mean, what happens if this bill passes? And I do want to stress to the audience that it's coming out of a committee right now. It's supposed to go to the House for full approval. Senate would have to approve it. And there was bipartisan opposition in the committee, even though the amendment passed. So this is not a done deal yet. But were this to be a done deal, what happens to the city? What happens if user fees are gone?
Well, obviously, it's going to put our projects in jeopardy. We're going to have to find other ways to fund them because they're not already funded. We haven't yet sold bonds after the new police and fire headquarters, but a lot of cities have sold bonds based on user fee proceeds. So those cities, I'm not sure if they're going to be exempted out or what. I don't think it was in the legislature yesterday. Obviously, this goes to the House Finance Committee. It still has to go to the Senate if it passes the full House. I felt pretty good from talking to Delegate Storch and Delegate Fluharty yesterday that we have a chance to beat this in the House Finance Committee. I do think if it gets to the full House floor, it will pass, but there is a chance to beat it in the House Finance Committee. And, I got a good feel on where the Senate is. I think in the Senate, there's some folks going to stop and look and say, whoa, what are we trying to do to our cities here? We already tell them they can't raise taxes X, Y, and Z. And keep in mind, one of the reasons why the city of Wheeling chose the user fee is because we first tried to do a property tax levy, which is what you do in a lot of states. Most states require, I think all other states require you, a city to do a property tax levy to get a 50% vote at the ballot. Well, we got a 54% vote at the ballot in support of our levy for new public safety building. The problem is, in our state, you need 60%, which is almost unattainable. There's been multiple instances of cities in the state who've tried to do property tax levies. They get 56, 59%, but they can't get that 60%. That's a really high burden for a tax increase. It's very hard to do, and it basically discourages cities from even trying projects. That's the only reason we did the user fee in the first place, is because it was the only viable option we had. We already have a sales tax. We have a B&O tax, which nobody likes B&O tax, but it's one of the taxes we're allowed to have under West Virginia state law. They can solve all these problems by giving cities the power to do 1% income tax. We could get rid of all these unpopular taxes. And income tax is, of course, the government's trying to get rid of it overall, but income tax is at least fair. It taxes people based on their ability to pay. We wouldn't have a lot of inefficient taxes, but this is what the legislature already lets us do, and now it's telling us it's going to take one more of those tools away and cause cities, we are not as dependent on the user fee as cities like Charleston and Huntington are. It's really going to put those cities in a very difficult situation if the user fee goes away.
A decade or more ago, the legislature began to offer home rule options to many cities. Wheeling was the first one, I think, to take up home rule, which basically gave the cities more flexibility in finding ways to fund their own operations. It looks to me as if we are sort of, not literally, but sort of rolling that whole concept back right now with this legislature.
Yes, we are, and we're doing it at exactly the time when we need to be helping our cities across the state thrive. That's where young professionals are moving to. They're not moving out into the rural areas. They're moving to cities. We don't have a city in the state in the top 150 population nationwide. Well, we need to be growing cities right now, not making it harder for them to get their roads fixed and do sewer projects and fund police buildings. This is not the time to make it harder for cities to actually attract and keep talent. But this is exactly what's coming out of this legislature so far. I've yet to see a single bill down there get any discussion, which is going to make life easier for cities to compete.
Laugh is not the right word, but there is irony in another headline in the newspaper today coming out of the Finance Committee meeting this week. Wheeling's finances remain on solid footing,
yes.
Which is one headline, which is a great thing to hear. And the story basically is that the city's financial outlook is pretty good. But take away the user fee, take away who knows what else is liable to happen. That good-looking financial statement may not be looking so good.
Yeah, but some context there is needed. Of course, the city benefited last year from CARES Act funding, and we also have, with the I-70 construction taking place right now, we're seeing a pretty large chunk of money coming in from all that construction work, which is taxed to the B&O tax. So I don't look at it as a windfall, but it's sort of a one-time project. We're not going to get many $280 million projects in the city. And so our numbers are really strong right now, but it's in large part because I kept spending under control, but B, we've had these sort of one-time cash infusions coming in from the Federal Act, CARES Act, and from the I-70 project. And that money's not going to be there going forward, though. We're still going to have to be able to get stuff done going forward. So I'm not looking at where we are right now in terms of where we can be, but we have to be thinking the user fee may not be critical this year to keep things going forward, but if we get rid of it, we're going to either have to cancel these projects or find other ways to fund them, either through other taxes or through cutting other spending. And all the spending we're doing right now are things that the city needs to keep moving forward and make investments in itself. We're a city with a lot of old parks that needs to be updated.
Mr. Mayor, I am, as you are, a Facebook member of several Facebook groups that watch the legislature and take a look at legislation, and several of them are, look out for H Bill. I'm making a number up here, but H Bill 23, very dangerous bill. Be sure to write your representatives and so on. And every time I see that warning, I'm thinking, why bother this year? Because I don't know if they're listening. So with that as the predicate, what do you do? What's the city do? What's the city manager do? What's the municipal league do? I mean, I don't think the legislature is listening much. So how do you get your point across? Or is it a lost cause?
It's not a lost cause, Howard. We can't give up. But at the same, we have to recognize there are a lot of members of the legislature from cities that have user fees. I feel like our four representatives here understand the city of Wheeling's position. You've got members from Huntington, you've got members from Charleston, members from Weirton and Parkersburg. Our strategy going forward will be getting the mayors from all those cities together to talk to all their members of the legislature and say, look, this is what's going to happen in our city. I think when more people realize the consequences of proposals like this, it's going to cause some to take a pause. We'll certainly be looking to do that with stuff going before the House Finance Committee. And if the bill does make it into the Senate, we'll be doing the same thing, just focusing on those senators from cities that are dependent on user fee funds for important projects. I think the mayor of Charleston was saying that she's going to have to fire police officers immediately if this bill goes into effect. This is literally
you don't mean defund the police, do you?
Exactly. I tweeted about this yesterday, but these are people who last year were no doubt screaming at the TV saying these people want to defund the police out in Seattle or wherever it was coming from. That's literally what they would be doing with this bill. In Wheeling, they would be stopping construction of a police headquarters or a rehab of a new police headquarters, the first one they've had since 1959. In Charleston, it would maybe cost 10 to 12 police officers their jobs. This is literally what they would be doing, and whatever it's not just a catchy tag phrase. They are literally defunding the police, and you can't convince me otherwise. And they're doing it because of some intellectual grievance they have about user fees. They're just trying to punish cities. It just makes no sense. We're not headed in a direction that's making our state more competitive, and it's like we're back living. We're back in the 1950s again, and we have to get out of this a 20th century mindset and move forward. And I'm just not seeing it from this legislature. I recognize they're not listening, but I think if you go through the members from those particular cities, and they make the pitch and they convince just enough of these folks. We don't need a strong majority. We just need a simple majority of these folks to say, wait a second, what's this going to do to the city of Huntington? What's it going to do to Charleston's budget? I think you're going to see some people hopefully change their mind, and that's going to be our strategy going forward.
And I will say, it strikes me from what I've been reading and what I heard yesterday, this amendment that eliminated the user fee essentially for everybody was a little bit hasty, and I don't think it had. I mean, it passed, but I don't. There were a lot of bipartisan questions being raised about it. So this may be one particular issue, and it could be because, as you point out, it's not just Wheeling; it's Wheeling and Charleston and Parkersburg and Weirton and another half dozen cities around the state that have user fees. This one may be able to be argued against. So I think more than some of the other things that are getting passed right now, this probably has some, a good strong lobbying effort. Maybe will work on that. But of course, Mr. Mayor, who knows what today will bring.
Yes. Well, you're going to be talking to Mr. Delegate Fluharty later. I talked to him yesterday just about this. It's, I feel for him down there. He's playing defense a lot this year, but as he's kind of been used to here the last couple of years. But we're counting on his help on this. But there were bipartisan votes against this yesterday. Delegate Storch also voted against this. I reached out to her, and she said she did not agree with what her colleagues are trying to micromanage cities. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. That's not conservatism. I think the Intelligencer had an editorial today, which the Intelligencer is certainly not going to be accused of being a liberal, biased media entity. It had an op-ed this morning saying that, this is not conservatism. And it's not. So whatever it is, we have to ask ourselves, where's it coming from, and why are we electing people who support this type of policies? Because it's not conservatism, and it's not doing anything that is going to enable cities to be more flexible. And why you want to limit cities' flexibility at this time when we're trying to compete in a global economy, especially post-pandemic, when a lot of Western Union cities have opportunities to go out there and get jobs with people who can work remotely now. Why you'd want to be limiting their abilities to innovate and be competitive right now is beyond me.
Mr. Mayor, I'll leave you, though, with a line that I've used in an awful lot of my social media postings when I rail about some of the stuff in the legislature. I often end with the line, but elections have consequences.
Yes, they do.
And we are seeing the consequences of what happened last year at the ballot box with the supermajority and the running amok, in my opinion, running amok by the supermajority of Republicans down there. And the sad thing is, just a quick comment, it's not Republicans per se. It's this radical, hard right, we're going to take us back to the 50s attitude that some Republicans have. The leadership tends to be that way, but not all Republicans are that way. As you point out, Delegate Storch, for example, has voted, quote, the right way, in my mind, on a number of different issues. She's broken with her party. Pat McKeon, bless his heart, up in Hancock County. Pat is always true to his principles no matter what. So I just always like to say, when I say Republicans, I'm talking about the leadership and the hard right radicals that are controlling things right now. But elections have consequences, Mr. Mayor.
Sadly, they do in this case, and hopefully enough folks in that legislature will come to their right minds before they do too much harm here over the next month or so.
All right. Good talking to you, Sarah. I'll talk to you again in the near future. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Howard. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Wheeling Mayor Glenn Elliott this morning. Well, I could tell yesterday when I talked to him that he was a little frustrated with and that was before this whole user fee thing came up. He was just very frustrated in general with what was going on out of Charleston. We'll talk to another guy who's a bit frustrated coming up in the next hour of the show. The Puppet Master, 3rd District Delegate Sean Fluharty. When I texted Sean last night, I said, "You having fun down there?" His response was, "We're getting our ass kicked." And I want to ask Sean, it's a serious question. Why do we call him the Puppet Master, Biff?
Because he asked, his first week there, who was pulling the strings?
That's exactly right. The very first floor speech he gave, he said, "Who's pulling the strings down here?" And then I think it was that group called ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Conference, that was writing all this legislation for Republican legislators around the country. I think it was primarily ALEC that was doing that. I would like to ask the Puppet Master that question now. Who's pulling the strings down there? Because I don't sense that ALEC's hand is behind this. I'm not sure that anybody's hand is behind this. I think that the leadership sat down and said, what are all of the miserable Republican things that we think we wanted to get done? Now we're going to do them because we got power. And I don't know that anybody's pulled the strings, which is kind of scary when you think about it. Fluharty will be with us coming up next hour. Gas prices going up. I want to talk about that coming up in just a minute. And the mayor and I were talking about defunding the police. It's not a defunding bill, but there's a police reform bill being introduced into Congress again. I'll talk about that. And much more coming up here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Feel free to text me if you would like to. 304-214-1600, 304-214-1600, or give us a call. Happy to chat with you as well. But before I chat or text or anything else, let's check some Ohio Valley headlines. And Tony's in with the Mountaineer Report.
The WTRF Channel 7 News Update is brought to you by...
I need some more tea. Back in a minute, Biffy.
Fate, WVU's regular season road schedule ended Tuesday night in Fort Worth with that win over TCU. In winning its sixth consecutive road game, the Mountaineers have now positioned themselves to close the season with 4 straight home dates starting Saturday against Kansas State. The Big 12's revised schedule brings first-place Baylor to town next Tuesday, and the Mountaineers will never return that game to Waco. That, my friends, is living right. Just how unusual is a 4-game homestand to end a season? Well, you would have to go deep into the Mountaineer record books. How about 72 years deep to the 1948-49 season when the Mountaineers, for some reason, ended the year with 6 straight games at home? Yep, games against Salem, VMI, Washington and Jefferson, Davis and Elkins, Geneva, and Pitt. The most notable member of that WVU team was none other than Fred Schaus, who would go on to coach the Mountaineers just 6 years later. Back to the current Mountaineers, West Virginia will play 17 of its possible 18 league games. Baylor will play just 14 out of its possible 18, but that will be enough to qualify for the championship. The minimum they needed was 13. Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas Tech will all play 17 league games. And that is today's Mountaineer Report. It's been brought to us by Kroger, the official grocer of WVU Athletics. I'm Tony Caridi on the Mountaineer Sports Network from Learfield, IMG College.
This guy knows so much about sports. They based the Sports Almanac from Back to the Future off of his dream journal. He's Bill DeFabio, weekdays noon to 2, on the Valley's only network dedicated to live and local talk radio, The Watchdog.
It's your turn to talk. From politics to pet peeves, get it off your chest and on the air. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
Well, it's looking nice outside. Sunshine, clear skies, nice looking morning. Temperature hasn't bumped up much yet, though. We're only going to get up to about 40 or so, but 30 degrees right now still at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. That's where we started out at this morning. And again, a little bit of wind blowing around, just enough to make it feel like 25 degrees. But 30 at the airport, 30 at my home studios in Elm Grove, 30 degrees at the Robinson Auto Group Studios downtown Wheeling in the heart of the Ohio Valley. More on the legislature coming up. I've got some more rant on the town hall meeting last night and this income tax reduction plan that the governor sort of has. I'll get to that coming up in a bit. My wife was commenting yesterday as we were out to pick up Teddy about how little mileage we have put on our car in this past year, Biffy. You know, we're just not driving that much anymore. I mean, I don't think we're alone in that. Very few people are driving as much as they used to simply because of the pandemic. We've taken no long trips. We don't do any real, even weekend getaways or anything. It's just basically we go out, do some shopping. She does the shopping. I sit in the car, take a nap. Pick up Teddy or take him someplace. I mean, we don't do much. And because of that, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the price of gas when we're filling up the gas tank. Put some gas in yesterday. But it is starting to go up a little bit. I noticed that, according to some numbers I've seen here, the average price of regular grade gasoline in this country, border to border, coast to coast, on average, jumped 14 cents a gallon in the past 2 weeks. 14 cents a gallon in 2 weeks, taking it to $2.64 on average across the country. I don't know what the average is around here. If you want to text me and give me some gas prices where you are, out of curiosity, I would appreciate that. But on average across the country, $2.64. That's, and again, a 14-cent increase in the last 2 weeks. Since November 20th, the price of the pump has gone up 46 cents. So prices are going up. Now, the last couple of weeks, a lot of that has to do with the deep freeze in the South, primarily in Texas and elsewhere, which shut down production at a lot of oil refineries in and around Texas. And then there's some of the usual seasonal related things that are about to kick in to effect. And so the industry analysts are telling us, Biffy, to look for the gas prices to keep on going up. Could hit close to $3 a gallon by summertime. Patrick DeHaan is head of petroleum analysis for the Gas Buddy website. He told USA Today that $2.80 is probably going to be our average peak this spring. Although another analyst, Phil Flynn of the Price Futures Group, said $3 per gallon is probably a possibility. So regardless of where it's going to be, $2.78 or $2.82 or $3, it's going to be up from where it was before. And you're already seeing, by the way, people who are blaming Joe Biden. Well, Biden's only been in office for a month, and look what's happened. He's driven the price of gas up. Well, that's ridiculous. Gas prices don't go up or down, generally speaking, based on the president, no matter who the president is, whether it's Trump or Biden. They respond to production reasons and to, competition and so on. So, but look for a higher price of gas, I guess, coming. Have you noticed it, Biffy? Have you paid attention to what the price of gas is?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I know there are certain places where it's higher than others, and I just avoid them. That's all.
Yeah, I don't believe in shopping around dramatically for gas if it saves you a couple pennies on the gallon. I just would have preferred to pay the pennies and get it where I'm at. But we shop around. Schmidt Brothers is often among the best prices around. Of course, we do use Kroger, and so we have the fuel points. When we have, sometimes 20 or 30 cents off a gallon, okay, we'll use Kroger. Even if their prices are higher with the points off, it'll be lower. But I really haven't paid a whole lot of attention, I guess, because we're just not driving that much. Normally, put on about 12,000 miles a year. I think that's the average, and that's about what we would put on our car. My wife noted yesterday on my Subaru, which is just about 2 years old, we've only got 15,000 miles on it after 2 years. We're like the little old lady who put it in the garage and only took it to church on Sunday. Just because we're not out and about.
Church on Sunday and Kroger respects to do shopping.
And that really is it. Now every day we take a short ride just to pick up Teddy and bring him home, and sometimes we'll take a little ride around town. What he loves to see, we still go down every day. We did it not every day, but frequently. We went down to the Center Market yesterday. He loves to look at the help me, Biff, the Science Center there. My friends,
Smart Center.
Smart Center. Thank you. He loves to look at that dinosaur that's coming out the window of the Smart Center that they put in a couple years ago. And he's pretty sure it's not alive, but he's not totally sure. So every time we drive up and we stop, and of course, if we're there, I suggested to my wife, perhaps you could go in and get some shrimp at Coleman's since we're here, which we did yesterday. And Teddy and I sit in the car and look, and he goes, "Granddad, he's not really alive, is he?" And of course, Granddad has to go, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. You don't think he'll come out and eat you, do you?" "I don't think so, Granddad." But he loves that. So that's all we do. I mean, we pick Teddy up. We will go for a ride. And by a ride, I mean we might drive to downtown Wheeling and drive from 10th to 16th and turn around and go back. That's it. That's all the driving we do. Farthest we ever go, far as I ever go, is to Dillonvale on Sundays when I preach. And I haven't done that before this week. I was back this week. Before this week, I hadn't done that since December. So I just don't notice the price of gas, I guess, is what I'm getting around to. But probably as we all begin to get out and about a bit more, as the vaccines kick in, as the COVID concerns begin to fade away, we'll probably be driving more, and then that'll probably raise the price of gas a little bit further. But at any rate, I just thought I came across this story. I thought it was worth our conversation here. Letting you know that the price of gas could be heading up towards $3 a gallon, at least maybe $2.80 or so, depending on which analyst you want to believe. Howard, so closing the pipeline had nothing to do with this. No, it didn't. It had nothing to do with the rising price of gas. Wouldn't impact it yet. No. Nope. Would not. God, there we go again. You're going to turn it all into Biden, right? Jeez, oh, peace. Yesterday we talked about Ithaca, New York, where the mayor there wants to literally defund the police. In fact, he is literally in Ithaca, New York, talking about closing down the police department and creating what was he calling it, Biff? The Department of Community Safety or something like that. That would be an all-civilian force, which I think is just an absolutely asinine idea. Do I think that we have a problem with overzealous cops, especially in larger cities? I do. Do I think that there is a real disparity between the way law enforcement handles people of color and people like you and me, Biffy? I do. And should we address that? I think we should. But this idea of, getting rid of police departments, and I don't know any reasonable person which I guess means I'm calling the mayor of Ithaca unreasonable. I don't know of any reasonable person who thinks that you can exist without a police department. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, there are some things that could be done. Two lawmakers have reintroduced a bill into Congress yesterday. Karen Bass of California and the chair of the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler from New York, reintroduced police reform legislation. They call it the George Floyd Reform Bill. It is not defunding the police. It's not defunding the police at all. But among other things, it would, on a nationwide basis, ban chokeholds and no-knock warrants. Chokeholds are banned in most cities anyways, but we'll ban them on a federal basis. It would, and I think there is value in this, it would overhaul the qualified immunity that police officers get. I think police officers need to be responsible for the actions they take, and they should not have built-in immunity from that. So there's some value in that. And also creating a national police misconduct registry to prevent officers who are fired for misconduct from being hired by another police department. Remember we had a case in Bel Air, but I forget who it was. Remember the guy that got involved in some serious disciplinary action in Cleveland? It was a huge national story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then it faded away for a while, and then he tried to get on as a temporary officer or a part-time officer in Bel Air. Ended up having to not take that job once it became public. Just like doctors or anybody else, if you have committed sins, so to speak, in your profession, I think police officers ought to be held accountable. They shouldn't be allowed to do bad things in one town and go and get a fresh start in another town. I don't know how this is going to go. It'll probably pass the House. What will the Senate do? It's a 50-50 Senate, Democrat, Republicans. I'm not sure, but I thought I would at least bring it up. Police reform legislation introduced into the House. Well, we'll talk about the legislature again with the Puppet Master. That's next on the Watchdog Morning Show.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
The ABC News is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
Here's ABC's Aaron Katursky.
Worse, that's not good. Biff, I'll probably use that Twitter audio from Justice somewhere in this half hour.